All right, welcome everybody. We are already returned to regular session. So if we could please stand for a moment of silence. All right, it's nice having a big crowd here for a change. Thank you, everyone, for coming. As a reminder, persons wishing to address the board must sign up prior to the start of the public participation. Speakers must register on the form provided by the district at the entrance of the boardroom to maintain a first-come, first-served process. For purposes of following up with speakers, the speakers must provide their name, address, telephone number, and/or email address. To limit comments to matters which may properly discuss during public participation, the speakers will provide the topics. Any group or organization wishing to address the board must identify a single spokesperson. Reading of the fire evacuation procedure. In case of emergency, would everyone please follow the exit signs to the outside of the building. Please stay completely clear of the building to provide space for any emergency vehicles. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight?
Elizabeth.
A second?
Adam?
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I will turn it over to you, Dr. Terranova.
Thank you, Mrs. Kostecki, and I will be brief because we have an important recognition coming up right after I am done, but I do want to give a couple updates. First of all, congratulations to Justin Barnes, who will be inducting in the next couple of minutes into the Visual and Performing Arts Hall of Fame. Thanks for being here, Justin, and again, we're excited to present you with this honor in just a couple of minutes. I also want to congratulate recent Athletic Hall of Fame honorees from earlier this month. Bob Thompson, who's a former phys ed teacher from 1981 to 2011, and a legendary soccer coach and Victor from 1988 to 2000. Bob was inducted. Robbie Page, the class of 2010, who played volleyball and basketball, was inducted, as well as Alan Altman, class of 1998, volleyball and baseball. So congratulations to Bob, Robbie, and Alan for their induction into the Athletic Hall of Fame. I want to, Kim, if you want to put the slide up, that'd be great. Just a reminder, in case anyone hasn't heard, there's a capital project vote a week from tonight, Thursday, October 24th, from 12 p.m. till 8 p.m., and it's going to be held on the Victor Central School campus at the Aquatic Center lobby, 953 High Street. So again, that's Thursday, October 24th, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. And just the next slide will show you the type of transparency the district showed in terms of presenting this capital project. Those are the various meetings and presentations and guided tours. We have one left. That's going to be Monday, starting at 6 p.m. It's going to actually start at the Victor Learning Center. So that's our last guided tour of during the communication of the project. So we're excited to have that. And again, we encourage everyone to vote on Thursday, the 24th. And then my last update is a special thanks to over 45 of our faculty members who led professional development sessions at our October conference day, which was the 11th last week. We continue to really focus on this concept of a student-centered, culturally responsive classroom and the relationship between those two things, and who better to teach that than our teachers themselves. And they really put it on the line to come out and lead that professional development in small groups. And also a shout out to our administrators and our teachers and our teacher leaders for their further development of our professional learning communities. Those are small groups of teachers, typically by grade level or department, that meet on a regular basis to talk about their teaching practice and try to work on ways to celebrate successes, but also to improve their practice. There's been some real specific goal setting this year in their PLCs, and a lot of action steps that are tied to, again, that idea of improving a student-centered, culturally responsive classroom. So I'm very excited about the work that happened on that day and the continued work that occurs throughout the year, especially with that teacher leadership that's so important. That's my superintendent's update.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Karen Finter. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Instruction. And one of the great pleasures that I have in my work is to help support a group of individuals known as our Arts Hall of Fame Committee. And the Arts Hall of Fame really is in place to celebrate and honor the accomplishments of outstanding alumni, staff, and community members. These individuals that are nominated and inducted into the Victor Visual and Performing Arts Hall of Fame serve as an inspiration not only to our staff but our students as well. Nominees can be inducted in one of four categories: as a creator, as a performer, a practitioner, or a contributor to the arts. And one of the criteria is that they are out of the Victor School District for at least 10 years. So out in the world, engaging in their craft in one way or another. And we're so thankful for members of our community who nominate outstanding individuals like the person we're honoring tonight. So if I could, I'd like to introduce a student who's going to be speaking a bit about why the arts is important to him as a student and why having an Arts Hall of Fame is so essential. So I'd like Jack Jones to come on up. Jack is a senior, currently a senior and one of Mr. Redout's students at the high school.
Hello. Sorry, I'm not so formally dressed. I need to pull this up on my phone. Apologies. Okay. During my time in the high school, I've had a lot of opportunities and avenues opened up for me that I wouldn't have had if it weren't for the art programs here. Many of my friends that I have today, I would never have met, or at least never have gotten close with, and that means a lot to me. One of my highlights of the art programs here is the trip to Europe that we took in February, the art club. We went to Paris and Amsterdam and visited many museums such as the Louvre and the Van Gogh Museum. We saw lots of regional arts, ate very good food. And that trip inspired me a lot and was a highlight of my high school experience. And if it weren't for that trip, I think I'd be different in a negative way. The Visual and Performing Arts Hall of Fame is important to celebrate the members of the community that grew up here and have been able to learn and grow and share their art throughout the world from here. That's all I had. Sorry. Thank you.
Oh, man. There we go. So I have 1.5 students with me here tonight. So I had Jack Jones was gracious enough to come and talk. My 0.5 student is actually currently closing shift at TJ Maxx. So she was very excited to participate. So she wrote this up for me and I'm going to share it. I'm not an 18-year-old girl, so please excuse some of the verbiage in here. My name is Delaney Pipes. I am a senior at Victor Senior High and an AP art student in Mr. Denner's AP portfolio class. For me, art has an effect on every aspect of my life. It has determined how I look at the world, how I look at people, and how I look at myself. I think being an artist makes you look for something beautiful in everything. I'm always trying to learn new techniques and new ideas from other artists, whether in the classroom, in books, or on social media. I constantly push myself to improve. As I've grown as an artist, not only in skill but in confidence and attitude, it has made me more and more confident in myself and in my ability to achieve any goal I may set. My art grows with me, and all my prior works represent steps of my progress. As a student at Victor, the art department has always had a special atmosphere to it. When you walk into any art classroom, you know you are going to be accepted for who you are and your mistakes. You can connect with everyone in the room solely because you know everyone has a passion for their craft. I believe the most important job art serves is connecting people. Lugging a huge canvas or paper through the hallway has made me engage in conversations with students and teachers I never would have talked to. I've met a variety of friends and encouraged me to be better. I even got the experience to learn from an artist in France on a trip with the art club. Being an art student at Victor will always be the most memorable part of my high school experience, and although I will not be pursuing art as a career, I know I will always participate in art and it will always be my passion. Yay, Delaney. All right, now I'm not a teenage girl anymore. Good evening, everyone. My name is Andy Redout. I am a high school art teacher here at Victor and also a proud class of 1994. Please don't do the math. Tonight, I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Justin Barnes, this year's Arts Hall of Fame inductee. Growing up skateboarding in the 90s wasn't as glorious as it is today. Back then, before the X Games, the Olympics, and Tony Hawk Pro Skater video games, skateboarding wasn't mainstream. We were seen as misfits, punks, and often up to no good. We were chased off public property, harassed by people driving by, and even had our ramps destroyed by an overzealous town board member. You guys remember his name? Do you remember that guy? You know what I'm talking about, John, right? Yeah. But we persevered, practicing our craft wherever and whenever we could. Some of us got better at pulling off more impressive tricks than others. I distinctly remember someone saying, "Dude, Justin's in a Crudco video." Eventually, Justin would make his way to become a sponsored amateur for Five Borough, a skateboard company out of New York City. Like I said, some more skilled than others. With a board in hand, he also traveled the world, South America, Southeast Asia, and Europe. Not bad for a so-called misfit from Victor. Fast forward to today, Justin has channeled the same passion, creativity, and uncompromising spirit into his career. From being a skater in the streets to becoming creative director and founding partner of Versus, a cutting-edge multimedia design and motion graphics company, Justin has made a significant impact on the world of visual storytelling. His work, seen on everything from Thursday Night Football to groundbreaking ad campaigns, reflect his vision, innovation, and tenacity. He's created work that has earned multiple Emmy Awards, Clios, Lions, Tellys, Digis, Webbies, and more. It's truly an honor to recognize Justin Barnes tonight as we induct him into the Arts Hall of Fame. A 1997 graduate of Victor Senior High School, Justin's passion for skateboarding and creativity has shaped his remarkable journey from the parking lots of Victor to a leading company at the forefront of motion graphics. And I'll end tonight with a quote from Holly, his nominator. "Justin is an inspirational alumni. He shares his talent, creativity, and vision all over the world. He is an example of tenacity, embodying a just be yourself, don't compromise, work hard, educate yourself, travel, and grind attitude." So congratulations, Justin, and thank you for making us proud here at Victor Central Schools. Am I doing this part, or? Tim's doing that part, okay.
Justin, come on up here. Do you think I should read the whole thing? What would you like?
No, you don't have to read the whole thing.
Well, this is, so everybody can see, this is going to go on the walls of Victor Senior High School. 2024 inductee for the visual arts, Justin Barnes, class of 1997. Just to repeat a couple things, but they're really important. He is the founding partner and executive creative director of Versus, an award-winning and culture-defining creative agency based in New York City. It brings together teams specializing in live action editing, motion design, computer graphics, and animation. And his story from graduating high school, going to New York City to skateboard is one of the most amazing stories I've ever heard. So to do all those things, create a difference in his community, but also across the world, is amazing. So we are honored to induct you into the Visual and Performing Arts Hall of Fame for the Victor Central School District, class of 2024. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, please. Thank you, everyone. Huge thank you to Holly, of course, for nominating me, and to everyone. I'm very excited about this. Thank you for that amazing speech, Mr. Redout. I love to hear from the students that they're excited about art, as I was. I took it for granted back then just how good the arts program was, but looking back, realizing just how amazing, especially ceramics and photography, something I still do to this day because of high school. So thank you. And, to all the students, I'm a resource, and I look forward to seeing them all out in the creative world, and let's do it. Thank you.
All right, before everybody leaves, real quick, you don't have to leave, by the way. You can stay for the entire meeting if you want. But I do want to recognize that October is the Board of Ed Recognition Month. And we have 5 out of the amazing 7 here tonight. Unfortunately, Tim DeLucia, our president, and Dr. Christopher Parks cannot be here. But in addition to those 2, though, we honor Lisa Kostecki, Carol Prescott, Brian Adams, Adam Snyder, and Elizabeth Mitchell. Just a couple things that really resonate with me as a superintendent. They are definitely recognized by their peers as leaders in the community. They have the ear to the community, and they also have the voice of the community, which is critical. And they are not afraid to speak their mind and tell you like it is, which is really important. They're also, we like to call it a team of 8, which means they're together and individually. They have great social awareness and can really understand one another's perspectives, including my own, and really force me in a good way to understand everyone else's perspectives. And when you do that, and most importantly, you have kids at the forefront as your number one priority, which every one of them does, then you end up forming a great team that makes overall really excellent decisions to support this community and this district. So I am just thrilled to work with all of you, and we definitely want to honor you tonight for Board of Ed Recognition Month. In front of you, you should have some gift cards from the Victor Administrative Association. You should have cards from a bunch of kids. You should have other gift cards. You should have probably the best gift. I don't know, the kids' gift. The kids' cards are probably the best. But besides that would be Maureen Goodberlet's homemade cookies, which are also in front of you. And I do want to read something. Monroe County School Boards Association, which Victor Central School District is a member, sent us this comment. They wanted us to make sure we read this tonight. Monroe County School Boards Association thanks each of you for your dedication and hard work as a Board of Education member. Your selfless service makes meaningful differences in the lives of our local students. Thank you for helping us recognize school board members across Monroe County, Team Monroe County School Boards Association. So big round of applause for the selfless work of our school board. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Terranova, and thank you to the rest of my board members. I appreciate all of you and the work we do together, and also, obviously, Mr. DeLucia and Dr. Parks. Before I read a blurb on public participation, do we have any speakers tonight? All right. Moving right along. I will need a motion for acceptance of consent items 6A through J.
Brian?
And a second.
Elizabeth?
Any opposed? Abstentions? All in favor?
Okay.
Motion carried. Moving on to campus news.
Good evening. Thank you to the board for all you do for our school, our community, and our students, families, and teachers and staff. My name is Rob DeRose, the principal of the Early Childhood School, and I'm pleased to be here to share some of the many happenings here at the ECS in the past month. Our kindergarten 1213 and 1211 classrooms went on a field trip to Wickham Farms. This was a great way for our students to enjoy time in our community as they deepened their science learning and made connections to their own lives, and how weather and seasons impact their daily lives, such as the activities we partake in, things we can do, and how we should dress. And they had a great time. Students in kindergarten and first grade connected with our bus drivers this month to learn about bus safety, thanks to the collaboration and support between our assistant principal, Laura Reynolds, and the director of transportation, Kelly Klink. Students joined their classmates on a school bus in our bus loop to learn about bus safety and ways that they can do their part in making each bus ride a positive one. Open house was last Thursday. We had the hallways and classrooms and learning spaces filled with positivity and smiling faces. It was heartwarming to see our young students proudly bring their families around their school to show off the amazing things that happen here each day. And it's pretty amazing, in just a short span of time, last month, these students were walking into this school for the first time, many of them, with worried faces and anxious expressions, and the same goes with their parents as they said goodbye to their kids for the first time for a full school day. And then in just a month to see the kids not only smiling and leading their families throughout the entire school, showing them everywhere that they go throughout each school day. They were so proud to show off the work we do here. This week we welcomed volunteer firefighters from the Victor Farmington area to our school. Firefighters taught our students about fire safety and fire prevention. Students even got to check out and get a close look at a real fire truck. This is sure to be a lasting memory and a positive experience for all our students, faculty, and staff. Next month, we have some exciting events happening, including a PTSA-supported visit from the author Valerie Bowling and a PTSA-supported kindness rock painting project connected to a school-wide assembly on November 13th, World Kindness Day. We look forward to sharing specifics around those fun events at next month's campus news, so stay tuned. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Heidi Robb, the principal at the primary school, and I want to thank all of you publicly just for your selfless work and service for our school. This month, I am going to highlight some of our special areas in some Victor schools and some at the primary school. Our pre-K through 12 music department was recognized as a best community for music education by NAM, which is National Association of Music Merchants Foundation. They support scientific research, philanthropic giving, and public service programs in the area of music and music education. Victor Central Schools is one of the 975 school districts that are among the best communities in the nation for music education. The award program recognizes and celebrates outstanding efforts by teachers, administrators, parents, students, and community leaders who have made music education part of a well-rounded education. Designations are made to districts and schools that demonstrate an exceptionally high commitment and access to music education. Our art department has been working with students on Square One Art, which is a favorite at the primary school. Not only is it a fun activity for the students, but it's also a way that brings some money back to PTSA for our students. The money from Square One goes to some really great activities for students, like Awesome Art Day and some other things with PTSA. Our PE team has developed a professional learning community this year. Last year, our mental health team met with our special areas to share ideas and strategies for specific students that might have unique needs. Our PE, PLC, or professional learning community, felt that it was time well spent last year, and as part of their action plan for their PLC work this year, they'll be working with that same team to continue to support students that might have unique needs. All of our faculty has worked really hard over the past few weeks to establish PLC goals that are aligned with our building goals. We want to thank our teachers and faculty for their hard work over the past couple of weeks, including that after-school professional development time and the superintendent's conference days. Their goals are thoughtful, and we know it's going to have a huge impact on our students.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Morrow, and I'm the principal of Victor Intermediate School. I'm excited to share some recent updates from VIS that highlight our students' engagement and learning experiences. First, our sixth graders had an incredible time at Conservation Days at Camp Bristol Hills. During the field trip, students rotated through 8 different stations to learn about a variety of science topics. Students participated in a simulation to model animal overpopulation. They completed a scavenger hunt to learn about invasive plant and animal species, explored the pond and observed different wildlife they found under a microscope. They also learned about wild birds, looked at fossils, made butter after learning about the diet of a cow, and sorted items to determine which everyday items should be recycled, composted, or discarded. In addition, our fourth graders enjoyed a meaningful trip to Ganondagan. While visiting the historic site, students were able to experience what it was like living in a longhouse, learned about Native American games and storytelling, and were students at Wampum Academy. They also toured the museum and walked the Trail of Peace. During lunchtime, Native dancers performed and several students were picked to participate in different dances. We also recently held our STEAM Day at VIS, where every classroom was buzzing with excitement as students engaged in creating drop copters and wicked fast water slides. Both STEAM challenges involved collaboration, creativity, and communication from students. It was really heartwarming to see our students tackle challenges and showcase their creativity, reinforcing the importance of interdisciplinary learning. Lastly, I want to highlight our open house events, which were a fantastic opportunity for students to proudly display their classroom communities and the hard work they've put into all their projects throughout the school year. Parents and families were thrilled to see firsthand the creativity and dedication of our students. The energy in the building was amazing, and it truly emphasized the strong sense of community that we're building at the intermediate school. I want to thank the Board of Education for your ongoing support and helping to provide unique and engaging learning opportunities for our students. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Brian Gee, the principal of the junior high school. Before we get to our updates, just want to, on behalf of the Victor Administrators Group and all of us as buildings, thank you again for your service as part of the Board of Education Month. We recognize you this month, but we're thinking about you every month. You do have a taste of Victor there. Hopefully you can get to enjoy some of the best things that our towns have to offer. So a couple updates for us. I know this year we're really kind of focused on giving you some progress updates on some of our goals at our building. So our first goal this year is really built around communication and making sure we have open lines of communication with staff and with kids. And the hope is to create more connectedness for our kids. So this year we just did our first student check-in where I asked students through a form that they could fill out. We had quite a few recipients filled out the form. What's going well was question 1. Question 2 is what could be better. Are you connected to at least one adult at school? It was a yes or no option. And then the last one was what should Mr. Gee know? And so a couple sample answers of what's going well. Kids remarked, I love my classes. I love my teachers. They talked a lot about some of our encore classes, tech and art in particular. One student remarked that all of my teachers have been very kind and understanding. Another kiddo said, it's going pretty good. I like all my teachers and I enjoy what I'm learning. I was a little worried about the start of the year, but things are going well now. What could be better? One kid mentioned that the announcements about clubs are great, but they're hard to hear. So is there some other way to communicate it? So I'm working with Angela Affronte right now about getting a Chromebox put into our cafeteria so we can display announcements every day so kids could see them as well. One kid said that the unplanned fire alarms going off when the weather decides to change could be better. We all agreed to that one. And then, as far as how many kids felt connected to at least one adult, this is an area of growth for us. 52 students out of the 71 who answered that particular question said they did feel connected. So that leaves 19 students who chose to answer that question that did not. And so that's something we're going to dig a little deeper into. And what I should know, many kids said, I love the junior high. So we were excited to hear that. As far as other goals we have, trying to help increase student engagement in classes. One of the things that we instituted this year is Laura and I giving kudos cards. Some of our directors do the same. So we visit classes. We have very specific look-fors around student-centered engagement. And as a way to continuously kind of give positive praise back to teachers doing that work, we have a little card made out with the kudos logo on it. If you remember those little candy bars from the 90s. They don't make them anymore. We were going to give people kudos bars, but they stopped making them. So we've been dropping off kudos cards. And not everybody gets one every time we visit. But if we see something that's on this look-for sheet that our faculty is aware of, we're trying to give that praise back right away. I think that's been going very well. And then lastly, Laura and I had an opportunity to kind of provide a faculty workshop that really targeted our third goal this year, which is how do we utilize student data in order to identify strategies that we can implement in the classroom and then progress monitor. So we took an opportunity last week during the conference day to kind of reinforce that by doing some tabletops with student names redacted and just data sets in different groups of teachers that don't normally work together, kind of taking a look at that to see how they're doing on that process. And so that also went very well, and we got some good feedback that we can use to improve some of the process around that as well. I look forward to future updates, and once again, thank you very much for your service to our towns.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Siesto, principal at Victor Senior High School. The things I'm going to talk about tonight related to the high school are connected to our first goal around culture, specifically creating a warm and welcoming environment for our building. A couple weeks ago, we had a fantastic homecoming week. I want to thank Dewey Weimer, Mike Ferrari, Danielle Westbrook, and John Aldrich for the time it took to organize the after-school activities, the pep assembly, and we had, for the first time in 12 years, a successful homecoming dance. The kids have been asking me for years to do a dance. I said no, because full school dances can be a little bit tricky. So we did do a dance this year, and we had, I think, just under 500 students attend. We did not do any kind of an announcement in terms of what they needed to wear. We just kind of kept it casual, and they all came dressed up, and it was a fantastic night. So it really was good. We're going to reinstitute that tradition of doing a dance because it was so successful this year. I want to recognize our Marching Blue Devils. They had their home show this past Saturday where they put on their performance of City Nights, and they finished second in their class. It was our 33rd home show and 43rd anniversary of our band program. As anyone would know, this show takes a small army to put on. So I want to thank sincerely Mark Gauman and the dedicated assistants and volunteers and the student performers for making this happen last Saturday, including Lauren and Todd Smith, who are the home show coordinators, and the entire band boosters, led by co-presidents Kirsty Sheets and Dottie Augustine. It was a great night. Our senior high orchestra is going to be having their first concert of the year this coming Monday, the 21st at 7 p.m. And next weekend is our annual fall play Snow Angel, which is going to be in the auditorium here at the ECS on Friday and Saturday. And here's the synopsis of it from Mr. Hawkinson. It's a snow day at Deer Point High School, and English teacher Mrs. Sampson has assigned her class to write in their journals to document their experience. Out of the snow, a mysterious young girl magically appears to one of the characters and comes to life throughout the day. Is she real? Or is she the result of several teenagers' creative journaling? Very mysterious. Rivalries, jealousies, and even romance blossom as the snow day unfolds. And Mr. Hawkins has said it's a very funny play with a bit of mystery at its core. So I think it's going to be a fantastic show next week. And lastly, I do want to just give a very brief update. I'm going to go into this a little bit more in detail in the coming months, but we've unrolled our Securely app that we're using for students to help manage hallways and student class out of time. It's an electronic pass system that has been an absolute game changer in the high school. We are seeing a gigantic reduction in students out of class with misbehavior in the restrooms, and it's been really, really a huge impact on our building this year. The kids really like it. They feel more comfortable in the hallways and in common areas. They don't feel the intimidation that they used to feel going to certain places. So it's been a huge bonus for us. And lastly, I just want to say thank you to the board for all of your support and giving us the opportunities that we have. Although I don't have any pictures, this past weekend our girls volleyball team made their annual overnight trip to Clifton Park for a tournament hosted by Shenandoah. It was a great experience for the girls, and they ended up finishing in the semifinals of the silver bracket. So once again, thank you to the board for your approval and your encouragement of all the cultural things that we do here at Victor High School. Thank you.
Thank you all. And see, this is what happens when people put me in the seat. I was remiss in not thanking our Victor Baseball Booster Club and our Victor Boys Volleyball Booster Club for their donations to the school. See, one of you have to remind me of these things. Up next is our management plan update. Oh, sorry, our vision and vision. I'm sorry, I just went right over Dr. Terranova.
That's okay. So I presented the work of basically hundreds of people and then large working groups of community members, staff, students, Board of Education members, work over really a year. And that work has been synthesized into a vision, I don't know, 5-paragraph vision statement, as well as a short vision statement, and then a mission statement. So we have those here. This is the vision statement. Together we will build a thriving educational community that inspires every individual to shape their own future with confidence and pride. Then we have the larger vision statement. And then after that, we have the shorter mission statement, Together we create engaging learning environments that promote empathy, inclusivity, and opportunity by uniting community and classroom. Our dedicated, supported staff prepare and inspire every student to achieve their academic potential and thrive in an ever-changing world. So this is a tremendous amount of work by many people who are definitely devoted to our school district. I presented it to you last month. And so this month, I would ask the board if they have any questions related to the vision and mission statements, and then ultimately to vote on whether to approve them tonight.
Any questions from the rest of the board? Then I will entertain a motion to approve our vision and mission, our new vision and mission statements.
Brian.
A second.
Elizabeth.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
So moved. We now have a new Victor Central School District vision and mission statement.
Thank you very much. Great work by everyone.
And now, our management plan update.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Finter. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Instruction. I'm joined this evening by Ms. Kara Carinci, our Director of Humanities for Pre-K-12. Unfortunately, Carrie Goodell, our other director, was unable to attend tonight. Had a little bit of, as you can imagine, students in two ends of the world tonight, and so needed to be there with them. So Carrie certainly was a strong collaborator in the work that we're going to share tonight. In addition, I have a few other thanks. I do want to give thanks to Adrienne Dahlstrom. Adrienne is a primary school teacher, but she's also going through her administrative intern program, and so she helped to compile some of the data that you have in front of you tonight. You've got a thick packet called the Data Book. It has lots of information in it. Tonight we're going to highlight some of the information that you see within it, kind of synthesize some of it, put it into graph form for you, so it's a little easier to digest. But you do have that, the holistic or the raw data. I also want to thank Liz Temple. She is our lone district data specialist, and she really helps to pull a lot of this information, help to compile it, in addition to her responsibilities to report the compliance information to state ed. So I want to thank her for that. It's on. There we go. Okay, so tonight we're going to start to tell the story of our academic achievement. It's a multifaceted story, and so when we look at data, we have to be careful not to just take stock in one number, because this is about children and their progress, and so it really is a comprehensive view. But tonight we're focused solely on academics. You'll see through the presentation areas that we can certainly celebrate and areas that we still have some room to grow. And we'll provide some insights into some of the work that we're doing to shore up those gaps, in addition to foreshadowing some presentations you'll see as early as next month, and then a little bit later from some of our building principals when they share the work of the PLC goals that a few talked about tonight. I also want to say sometimes data, people have two responses to it. Sometimes people are really excited and get into the numbers and the graphs. Sometimes people get a pit in their stomach when we talk about data. So our purpose tonight when we look at this information isn't to blame or shame. We don't want to cause that pit in our stomach. We want to really certainly celebrate those areas of growth, but we also want to be mindful of the work that we're doing and know that we're coming at it as a collective, that it's not about a single grade, classroom, a building. It really is a collective, and it takes a system to shift and change some of the work. Okay, thanks. I'll just point. So this really stems from the management, the strategic plan and the management plan. You know, our first year, we really focused on the what, that idea of backwards planning and really focusing on what students need to know and be able to do. How does the teacher know that they're successful, and the students as well? And what are those aligned learning experiences? So a lot of that initial work really focused on planning, and it still focuses on that backwards design as we're working to develop curriculum that supports instruction in the classroom. From there, we focused on in our second year of the management plan work, we really focused on the how. How do we engage students in a student-centered way, in a culturally responsive way? And in November, you'll hear and see different examples of how that plays out. But we really wanted to set the foundation on the what, set the foundation on the how, and now this year, are those two things working? Can we use data and information to set goals and to track our progress and our practices with that? So we really want to use the information that we're collecting and the samples you'll see tonight to help drive that progress forward. So I'm going to turn it over to Kira, who's going to share some information about early literacy, numeracy, and then our work through 3-8 assessments as well.
Good evening. So looking at our early literacy and numeracy screening, why do we administer these assessments? So benchmarking our students gives us insight into how our students are performing in comparison to other students across the nation in both reading and mathematics. It also serves as an opportunity to reflect on our own instructional practices as students respond to what we're doing in the classroom. So looking at our early literacy, why does it keep moving? Did I hit that? No. So looking at our screening tools. So how do we do that? We screen our students in grades 1 through 3 using AimsWeb. AimsWeb is a tool that we use 3 times a year, and this screener gives us information about how students are performing in their early literacy skills, letter sound relationships, oral reading fluency, and early numeracy skills. So this screening data allows our building teams and intervention specialists to provide, it provides us with the ability to identify students who are below grade level cut scores and determine if those students are in need of an intervention. So the third part I'm going to hit in a little while, the other third pillar. So looking at our first data set, this is our oral reading fluency. And so this is a snapshot of grades 1 through 3 in our ORF data percentiles from spring of 2023 and compared to our spring of 2024. So again, we use this data to get a temperature of how students are performing when applying their reading skills. And to obtain an ORF score, the students read a 1-minute probe. So at this point, we're looking at how students are accurately and fluently bringing words off a page and coming up with meaning from that. So we determine those correct words per minute, And based on this performance, we also decide if we feel that further diagnostic assessments are in order to really look at where the skill deficiencies are. So again, this gives us an overall look, and then we decide whether we need to dig deeper based on the performance. So for example, first grader with an at-risk oral reading fluency score might doesn't mean that they're just not fluent in their reading and that they need to do repeated readings. It might be a little bit deeper, so we have to go back into those progression of skills and look to see where is the breakdown, where do we need to fill those gaps. So again, it just bridges that the avenue for us to look a little bit further into where the breakdown is. And so the areas might include phonemic awareness, nonsense word fluency, or basic phonics skills. Okay. Nope. Where did I go? Okay. So similar to grades 1 through 3, we benchmark students in grades 4 through 8 in both reading and math. We use a different screener called the NWEA. So again, the screening is done three times a year, assessing both reading and math and benchmarking students. That is a national norm, so we can see where they are in performing at their grade level. So similar to benching, that benchmark data gives us that information for our building teams and intervention specialists to determine which students are below the specific achievement cut scores, and then identify them as if they're in need of an intervention. So here's a snapshot of the NWA reading, and so for grades 4 through 8. So again, you can see the comparison from spring of 2023 to spring of 2024 and the proficiency percentiles. So again, this tool gives us a look at who's at risk and gives some information about who is proficient in reading as well. Here's the NWA data for math, grades 4 through 8. So the benchmark screening data isn't used to modify Tier 1 instruction, but it's primarily used as a predictor for those students that may struggle with New York State assessments, standards, and we see that they're below proficiency on those assessments. So what we do is we identify what domains they may struggle in, where the focus is in terms of supplemental instruction, and then we can formulate some progress monitoring goals based on that data. So let's take a look at how this translates into our 3 through 8 New York State assessment data for grades 3 through 8. So here's an overview of our ELA 3 through 8 New York State assessment data. And if you look, they are for the proficiency rates of 2023 and compared for kids at Victor compared to New York State for 2023. And then again, same comparison, 2024 percent proficiency to New York State. So Victor to New York State proficiency. So you can see those various percentages of proficiency. So Karen mentioned this, like what this information gives us, and it's one snapshot of where students are at. So in grades 3 and 4, you can see where they are in comparison in their performance with Victor versus New York State and their percentages. So students who struggle to read by the end of 3rd grade face significant long-term challenges. So 3rd grade marks the shift from learning to read to reading to learn. So it's a big lift for our students. And failure to address this issue can become problematic. So at Victor, we started the work to inform our practices by starting with building our knowledge base around the science of reading. And it's been about 2 years ago that the implementation of Super Kids in our early learning building, our early literacy program that addresses the essential skills in the progression of reading. So the good news is 95% of students who are given this instruction with the intense, explicit phonics and listening learning of those foundational reading skills, do respond and learn to read. They are capable, cognitively capable of that. And so furthermore, the curriculum work that we're doing in grades 3 and 4 that address that aspect of reading to learn enhances that foundational skills instruction and brings them to a place where they're being exposed to complex text and having those conversations, grappling with text, answering text-based questions, collaborative work. So those are the things that we want to see our students do, because when they are in a situation like this one assessment, they're asked to do a lot of things that you have to build capacity and stamina for when they're sitting in a time or a one-seated time to take an assessment.
So looking at math as our overall proficiency in math assessment, and know that the proficiency levels are a starting point, right? Like it is where our students are performing, but that doesn't tell us the story kind of under the surface. And so just 2 quick examples of how we're using this information to do some of the work Kira alluded to around our curriculum work and how to shore up those opportunities for students in 3rd and 4th grade with complex text and ways to build their stamina. So happens in math as well. And so, for instance, a group this summer came together to look at a 3-year analysis of state assessment data down to the standard level to really drill down and how are our students performing on those particular state standards in mathematics. And they found some areas around fractions in particular that they needed to shore up. So they looked at some of the released questions, really unpacked them, and then worked together to develop learning experiences that better matched and better mirrored the expectations on the assessment. And so those will be implemented this year to help shore up some of those proficiency gaps. The same kind of analysis was done in a different grade level, and they noticed multiple choice responses versus constructed response answers. Even though the standard addressed in the question was the same, very different, higher percentage of students scoring a multiple choice than constructed response. So what are those ways that we can instructionally build in opportunities for students to demonstrate their thinking by articulating their thinking when it comes to solving math problems, not just picking out the right answer? So that work, again, is part of that PLC focus and some of the action steps that they've identified this year. When we look at data, oftentimes we can compare to ourselves year to year. We can also compare to things like the state average, which is helpful. We do have some regional support, and so as a member of the Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES, we can do some comparison to ourselves across the region. Knowing that there's a lot of diversity across the region. We have very small districts, we have larger districts, small city districts, but we really, want to kind of take a look at how are we performing in alignment with others in the area. And so you can kind of see this is a 3-year window, a picture, if you will, of our performance compared to the 25 other districts in the Wayne Finger Lakes area. And I know that it's not a matter of always being number one, but you want to see strong performance as the years go on, and that range of ranking really narrow down, and so that it's a tighter cluster. And if you kind of look across, that's really what we're doing. And so as the years progress, to be in the top 4 or top 5 of the districts within Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES is certainly within our grasp. So the principals talked a little bit about how we're working together to use this information, both 3A and what you'll see with Regents and AP. But it's that ongoing analysis of the data, and not just 23, 24, but even some historic. I talked about that 3-year window that's available to us as well. We've engaged faculty in a whole district overview at the start of the school year, and they've seen and heard that message again through their building and their grade level meetings and taking a look at some of their specific data. There's been a lot of great modeling and training for staff on data analysis, and the principals have been exceptional in sharing some of their goal setting with their buildings so that they have that strong model to work from. PLCs have been provided really targeted and specific data so that they can get down to that standard level and use that information to set a quantitative goal focused on student achievement that has action steps that they're developing. We're providing this space and time for them to accomplish those goals, leveraging conference days and contractual PD, but they're really determining what they need in order to achieve their goal. So some Regents data. So we, as you can see, over the last 3 years, consistency is a word that comes to mind when you look at this chart. For the most part, our Regents' proficiency rates are very high. Those 5 exams that are circled are considered graduation, the basic graduation requirements, those exams that are needed for graduation. I'd like to have you take a look at ELA for just a second, right? So you see a little bit of fluctuation in ELA. Overall, when you look at our comparison outside of ourselves, when you look at county comparison, our performance is incredibly strong. But take a look at the mastery rates. For English 11, 68% of our students achieved mastery on the ELA Regents exam, which means that they scored, if we equated it to percentages, an 85% or higher on that exam. So when we talk about college and career readiness and how we're sending our Victor graduates out in the world, that really is a testament to the work that's happening across the K-12 spectrum to build strong readers and writers by the time they're in high school. Also, earth science, when we look at the earth science mastery rates, 65% of our students mastering the concepts in a pretty challenging technical science. So kudos to those folks. And again, when we look at our comparison, you can see our ranking for English is first, earth science third, so very, very high. Okay, we're going to take a deep breath because this next chart can be a little overwhelming. We offer 21 different APs, and they're all on one chart. But it tells a very interesting story. So the yellow bars are the Victor performance. The gray bars are New York State, and the blue bars are the world, the global performance. So 16 out of the 21 exams, Victor students exceed both the state and the world in achieving a 3 or higher on the assessments. So it's really a fantastic result. And those areas where we don't, that's where we can really get under the hood, where we really want to take a look at, is it a prerequisite skill that somewhere along the way we're missing? So by the time students get to AP stats, they're missing a piece. What is that piece? Can we figure it out? So I know our AP Stats PLC is working together, and they want to backtrack into Algebra 2 and see if there are some things there in terms of prerequisite skills that they can go back to, as a for instance. And then last bit of information, our cohort data, our graduation rate. And when we talk about a cohort is any student that enters the class as a freshman all the way through for at least one day, they're a Victor student. And so they're part of that graduation rate unless they enroll in a different district. And so our graduation rate is 96.4%, which is an outstanding graduation rate. But really focus in on that 77.8, that blue arrow down at the bottom. Just 3 years ago, the students with disabilities graduation rate was 50%. It's risen to 77.8. We're still not quite at the 85% that's recommended by New York State as a metric, but we're making great progress, and that's a testimony to the hard work of our PPS team and really providing access to students with the courses that can support them to getting that diploma. So in summary, there's lots of great celebrations to be shared. You have this information. It's the last page of your data book that really goes through all of the information that's shared with you. Know that this is the foundation that we're trying to set. And through the presentations later in the year, you'll hear a little more about some of the specific examples and way teams are using this data to drive their practice, to drive their instruction. For those areas where we definitely have some incredible work ahead of us, we're rolling up our sleeves and we're getting in there and really trying to make a difference for kids, because we know some of those foundational pieces are essential. So with that, any questions?
Thank you so much for this data book. Like, truly, it's very fascinating to see across the K-12 continuum a lot of those points with ELA, with math, and then as we get into the secondary level, just all of those different disciplines and classes that the kids have access to. I did have, I guess, like just a curiosity over the fourth grade and WEA for ELA. 67% of the fourth graders last year in the average to high average percentile, but looking at the state test, if I'm reading it correctly, 46% proficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Being a mom of a past fourth grader, current fifth grader, I'm curious if knowing what their early education in Victor was, in the sense that they missed out on a third of in-person learning in kindergarten. Mm-hmm. They attended half-time in first grade. And their first fully typical normal school year was in third grade, once masking was phased out partway through their second grade year. Is there anything specific to that grade level that teams are looking at? Because I do see a few discrepancies within the data for that grade level cohort. I'm just curious about it.
Well, we have had conversations about, just having exposure and being in school obviously is the best place to be, right? So we all know that, and especially from the experience of COVID and being with teachers and, having that full time in the classroom is definitely a contributor to our students' learning. But when you look at the NWEA and the higher percentage there, it's some of the things that we're reflecting on. That's a nationally normed test, so everybody takes, it's something that's across nationally that kids can take. So we get that norm data, and what we're finding too, and I think this has been a conversation before. It's showing that the students can. They're taking text, they're reading it, they're able to code those words, and they're performing on that test. When you put them in front of a New York State assessment and our state in general, the expectations, even looking at grade equivalency on some of those standardized tests, don't equal the actual rigor that we put in front of our students on the New York State test. There is a difference. It does give us an indicator of how they are as readers, right? And then, like we mentioned, that's one snapshot, but moving forward, what are the other things that we do? Again, that position where they're going from learning to read to taking that and reading to learn information. So it's definitely a bridge that we are looking at to bridge that learning. And again, it goes back to looking at our curriculum in third and fourth grade and the integration of units that they're working on, and making sure that we have those complex texts and those opportunities for students to grapple with text and engage in those conversations of really meaning level and understanding what they're reading, and then actually responding and writing. So we look at those New York State test questions, the multiple choice, the construct a response. How are they performing? So there's a few different factors in that. I don't know if Karen has anything to add to that, but.
Yeah, and I think, Elizabeth, we talked month or two ago, even just looking at things like how some of the summer academy work can help shore up some of the gaps, how different structures in the building, even win time, and thinking about when using time a little differently. I know the curriculum writing teams that wrote this summer, whether it was third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, they were all kind of focusing on what are those components within the core instruction? What are those supplemental components that we could use in our small group instruction during that win time to help shore up gaps and give kids that extended practice on some of the more complex texts, discussion-based work, and then ultimately demonstrating their thinking and writing.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for putting this together, because it just feels like it just gives us some very simple stuff to look at, to adjust to. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Agree. None of us up here are shy about loving data. So this is incredibly helpful for us. And as you guys are the experts, obviously, in this field, what are your largest concerns about some of the things you saw here?
Some of the things we've just talked about.
I mean, there was also some really good highlights too. So
I do think really making sure that our curriculum is aligned in rigor with the expectations of the standards, right? Feeling like we had some mismatch. And on that math example that I described, some of that work came about because after COVID, as a response, recognizing time is limited, we have to prioritize what can we take out. Well, sometimes when we take things out, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak, right? So now that we've got some data to take a look, those things that we may have removed might have been foundational next steps, even for the other grade level. And so really being thoughtful about how can we work back in some of those things and double down on those priority standards that we need to. And I would say that across the board. We want to see consistent, not the up and down in some of the grade levels. But again, that's where some of that really solid curriculum work happens.
I just want to echo the gratitude that's being given by my fellow board members here, and say I'm also very grateful for the data. One question that I have, perhaps we can't answer it now, but we can revisit. Will there be any sort of midpoint indicators or sort of key performance indicators that we can look to before we have to go through this process of compiling all the data to do a year-over-year analysis? And do you think maybe that could be a good check-in for us at some point?
Yeah, so I think, the screening data that Kira spoke to, that does happen 3 times a year. We have to take it for what it is, right? It's a sifter, it's a sorter piece of information, but it does give some predictability. I think as teams work through that goal-setting process and they've developed action steps, what we'll be bringing back to you later this year will be examples of how they're monitoring progress on that work. One of the PLCs that were goal setting on Superintendent's Conference Day talked about, well, we can't just wait for data that we're going to get next summer to know whether or not what we're doing is working. Right. So they're even thinking about instructionally, how do we build in some checkpoint assessments or check-ins so that we get a sense of how our students are being prepared and how they will do on our different assessment measures. How can we look at our assessment measures a little more critically? So we will have some information, but I think over time, as we're starting this goal setting process, like this is year 1, and then as time goes on, how do we build in some more purposeful check-ins along the way, some benchmarks that are internal to us.
So that was my macro type question, and then my sort of macro view question, I think you just answered, which was more longitudinal study over time. Mm-hmm. Having this data and the foundation of this and doing that is going to give us years worth of trending analysis for us to see how are we doing 3.8 and how does that correlate to what we're seeing in some of the demonstrations you did with the AP and the advanced studies. Yep. Would love to see mastery continue to go up, and if there's a correlation between moving the mark here, I would think it would come upstream there.
Yeah,
so.
For sure.
I just had a clarifying question on page 2 and 3 of the data book. I see asterisks marked for some of the subgroups. Are those groups that we specifically have to report to the state, or why are those
So
marked in such a way?
the state designates accountability subgroups that have an asterisk. If there is a group that's left out, it might be that its number is too small to report. That would protect the identity, because it might be a group of 1, 2, or 3. But those asterisks represent the accountability subgroups.
And then within one of those groups, students with disabilities, and I suppose former students with disabilities, are those any IEP or specific to learning disability?
Any IEP.
So like speech, OT, PT. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. We know what we'll all be doing later. Reading numbers.
Good evening. I'm Dorothy D'Angelo, the Assistant Superintendent for Personnel, and I'm here to talk to you tonight about the work of building structures. So the work of building structures was born out of the strategic plan, and the cool thing about this goal is that it was a pretty broad goal. So it left us an opportunity, as this large committee formed of 34 people, to really talk and think about what areas we wanted to target. So before launching into the work, I gathered feedback from the administrative team. We put a survey out to gather information from the staff, because again, it's a really broad topic when you start thinking about structures and what that means to different people. And so after we gathered all of that information, the committee looked at all of it and synthesized it and decided that we would focus on 3 primary areas. The first being building configurations. So how are our buildings made up across the 5 buildings in terms of what grade levels they house? Transitions, really looking at what those transitions are, not only between buildings, but between grade levels. And then scheduling. So looking at that teaming model at VIS, where they have 2 teams of teachers. One does ELA and social studies, the other does math and science. Looking at that letter day schedule, because we have 2 different models, a 4-day model and a 6-day model in the district. Looking at block day scheduling, or block scheduling at the high school. And then looking at time allotments for courses across grades 4 through 12. So we divided up into 3 subcommittees, divided members up, because certainly it would be a lot to have 34 people on any one of these. For each area, we identified key questions that we wanted to look at. So in terms of that configuration, it's really making sure that we have structures in place that are conducive to supporting kids' social and emotional and academic growth. And then we really also wanted to consider what would the impact be of changing the grade levels across buildings. So this was the cool part of this committee. They really looked at 4 different configurations. So the first would involve an addition of grades 2 and 3 at the ECS, and the addition of K and 1 at VPS. And then VIS, VJH, and VSH would stay the same configurations that they are now. A second model involved the addition of all of grade 2 at the ECS, and transitioning VPS and VIS to 2 3 through 6 buildings, and then the junior high and senior high would remain the same. A third model that they considered was keeping the ECS, the junior high, and the senior high the same, but creating 2 through 6 buildings at VPS and VIS. And then the fourth model was the addition of grade 2 to ECS, the addition of KN1 to VPS, the third grade shifting to VIS, so that would become a 3, 4, 5 building, and then shifting the 6th grade to the junior high, so that would be a 6, 7, 8 building, and 9, 12 remaining the same. So as they looked at those configurations and considered its impact on students, they looked at a number of different data points. So obviously, research was one. They looked at other districts to see how other districts are configured. In terms of impact in students, for an example, one of the things they considered is how would we provide equity of opportunities and services across buildings when we have grade levels, the same grade level across many buildings. They looked at logistical implications. For example, if we have two buildings with the same structure, what would be the logistics of ensuring siblings being together? So there's all of this minutia that goes into making these shifts. And then what are financial implications? What would be the impact on shared building, on building renovations? So interestingly enough, when they went through all the research, they found that research did not support one grade level configuration model over the other in terms of its outcome for students, in terms of their social and academic growth. But they did find that there would be significant financial costs to making grade level configurations, to changes to that. They found that there'd be an increase in cost related to shared staff. You're sharing more staff across more buildings, so it's hard to make efficient use of the time, and it would result in needed renovations to existing spaces. So the recommendation from the Building Configurations Committee was to maintain the grade level configurations that we currently have in the district. And I'm going to talk more about the transitions in a minute and that's impact. But their work did dovetail with the Transitions Committee because the feedback was if we're keeping the configurations the same, what we really want to look at is how are we supporting those transitions between the grades and within the grades. So that leads me into the work of the Transitions Committee. These are the key questions that they were asking themselves as they started moving into this work. And in terms of research for this, there's a great book out that's called Yardsticks. And this committee really did a great job of doing a lot of legwork for the other committees, let me tell you, because they went through every age level and looked at what are the developmental points for kids at different age levels. How does that impact them in terms of their being transitioned between grade levels, and what do they need for support? So it really, I think every group tapped into what the Transitions Committee looked at. They also looked at what are our current transition practices. And it was really interesting because I have to tell you, we have a lot of great things in this district that we're already doing to support transitions. So in terms of some of the work that they found as they went through and looked at the work in Yardsticks, they found that those transitions from grades 1 to 2, 5 to 6, and 8 to 9 can be more difficult for students typically. That the things that help are opportunities for acclimations for students. So having opportunities for kids to come in and get to know the building, get to know the new staff. Parent and education collaboration is another thing that they found helps students in their transition and their acclimation, because certainly if parents are comfortable, parents have an understanding of the building, expectation, what the learning is going to be, that they can help support students and help them be successful. And then communication is another piece that you want to focus on around transitions, so that there's some communications that you want to have look the same across buildings. There's some that will be unique to your buildings. And then what's that pertinent information that we want every family to have going building to building?
I have a quick question on the slide before you go.
Sure.
Too far. And maybe you're going to get here, so stop me. But 1 to 2 makes sense, 8 to 9 makes sense, 5 to 6 I'm curious about, because there's a discernible building shift from 6 to 7, and I guess I would wonder if that was part of your findings at all, moving from 6 to 7 in terms of the grade transition.
These were the ages that were specifically noted. So,
okay, thank you.
I would agree with you. It is hard to go from 6 to 7.
It surprised me.
This is in terms of their developmental levels. Yeah, this is in terms of their developmental levels. It's not about the grade shift. It's about in terms of. We have lots of experts in the audience too, Heidi, that were on this committee. So the recommendations from that committee are to really look at an addition and expansion of experience that help orient students to new buildings and staff. Like I said, we do a lot of great things already, but adding to those, so we have meet and greets, orientation, partnering with other classrooms. One of the suggestions is, maybe we start some of that sooner. Maybe we expand some of the orientation opportunities that we have. There was a recommendation to refine and expand systems for communication of pertinent information. So for example, thinking about the mechanisms in place to familiarize staff with incoming students, that would be a great way to support a transition. And then increase focus on the development of skill areas necessary for success at the next grade level. So for example, executive functioning skills would be one that you want to be mindful of. Or if there's a significant increase in rigor at the next grade level, how are we gearing up and helping kids get ready for that? So in terms of next steps for the transition committee, these recommendations were shared with the building principals, and they'll be working at the building level to consider these and make decisions around how to implement those recommendations. The scheduling committee, these are the questions that they really looked at. They're really focusing on making sure that we can maximize opportunities for students within the current way that our scheduling is configured. And then really we also want to look at if the current scheduling structure maximizes the efficient use of staff, because we always want to be mindful of our resources. So the focus areas, just to remind you, were these 4 areas that they were looking at. And these are the data points that they were looking at, but I have to say some of these data points are going to be ongoing. So for example, they looked at current practices, they did a staff survey, there's still a student survey that's going to be sent out. They'll still be looking at the logistical impact as they're looking at different configurations this year. This committee, we knew at the onset, would not be a one-year committee. When you're looking at letter days and block scheduling and those types of things, it's not a decision you want to take lightly. And so last year, it was really just laying the groundwork for the work this year to continue. So far, what they've identified as findings with their initial work is that the current scheduling model does impact student opportunities, access to opportunities and supports. So that's certainly something. They found that at the elementary and the secondary level. And it also impacts the use of shared staff right now. So as they're moving into this next step in their work, those are 2 factors they're going to keep in mind. But we may find other things that come as we continue in this work, come out of this, that we find that the schedule impacts. So the recommendations that came out of that committee are further review of the teaming structure at 4th grade. I know Jim already sent an email out to staff because we talked in building structures about the fact that we really want the people that are in that building to be involved at the ground level with this work, and I know he's already reached out. A committee is going to be exploring scheduling options at the secondary level because we really want to look at more closely aligning the schedules between the junior high and senior high. And then our biggest goal is to identify scheduling models at 4th grade, the junior high and senior high, that really allow us to maximize those opportunities for students. And so in terms of next steps, it's establishing that building-based committee at VIS, and then the committee at the secondary level as well. The committee was great to work with. The larger committee is going to get updates throughout this year on this work. The idea would be that we work through these other 2 committees around scheduling to come up with what we would propose moving forward at the end of June, so to bring back recommendations at the end of June this year. Any questions?
I have a few. Would the recommendations potentially impact the academic year for next year, or would it be like another year out with planning for either revisions to block scheduling or teaming at 4th grade? Like, what does that timeline potentially look like? And I know that some of that's probably gray because we don't know what the recommendations are yet, but would it be with the idea that changes would be made for next academic year, or would it be bumped out to 26, 27?
So I can't speak to the elementary level because we have not gotten that far in our conversations at the elementary level. At the secondary level, it definitely could not be next year that it would be implemented. This year will just be determining what that model would look like. And it would not be feasible to get it up. We want to do it really well. If there's a shift, we want to do it really, really well and think about all of the different components that we have to think about.
Okay. Thank you. And my second question, I guess, is like kind of in the weeds, just out of curiosity. Some scheduling with music lessons, for example, at the elementary level follows a Monday through Friday schedule. So looking at like equity for students who have lessons on Mondays or Fridays, if it would the group ever consider looking at something like that? So if we miss a lot of Mondays throughout the school year and a lot of Fridays, which puts kids in those days for lessons behind their peers who typically have lessons Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So looking at some of these scheduling things, would that ever be feasible in either the intermediate school or the primary school? To shift to the letter days and have a rotating schedule for musical instruments that follows letter days as opposed to Monday through Friday?
Well, it's on my radar now, so we sure can have that
You're
discussion.
welcome.
No, I do appreciate it. We do have, we will have somebody from each of the different departments, or at least be circling back with them. But those are the kind of questions that if we come up, we'll look at them this year. So I'll definitely bring that to the committee.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Just have to throw in, I know in some of the discussions we were talking about like the lack of lab space in junior high. So just to have to throw out that, you know, hopefully the capital project will go, and that really will impact a lot of those choices. It will open up those opportunities. So got to throw that out there.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We've got some field trips to approve. Our varsity wrestling to Dellinson, New York. Our cheerleading team to cheerleading nationals in Orlando, and our medical explorers to Belize to participate in the Global Medical Squad program. I will take a motion. Adam, second. Any opposed, any abstentions? So few of us, all in favor? Aye. Enjoy these trips for our students, really awesome opportunities. Meeting reports, Monroe County School Boards Association Committee reports. Anybody?
I attended a meeting via Zoom a couple weeks ago on cell phone policy. An electronic device policy, and I was able to be physically present on Zoom for the first half hour, and then I finished watching the presentation later as it was recorded. And if anybody is looking for something to do to fill an hour worth of time, it was very interesting to hear from Greece Central what their cell phone policy entails. And just as we look through our policy review, it got me thinking about comparing and contrasting what is done here and then some changes that Greece has put through. So,
Were you on your cell phone when you watched it?
I was not. I was on a laptop.
Got it. Just check.
You want to share some of your takeaways by any chance?
It's interesting to see like people chiming in what different districts do, and I think considering you know, from an equity standpoint, you know, what the devices are used for in terms of instruction, it made me, I went in having like strong feelings one way, but then hearing through the presentation, I still go back to, I just don't know. And I also don't have children that, you know, own cell phones in my house yet, so I think that also is a shift in perspective for me as well. It's something that I'm not faced with as a parent, or that they don't have access to during their school day yet. So, but it was definitely interesting. So I encourage everybody to check it out if you have time.
Thanks.
Along the lines of that, I attended the law conference last week with similar topics, 3 major topics: social media and schools. So totally plays into the cell phone policies in schools, special education and the role of the Board of Education. And then there was a moderated event with the General Counsel from New York State Department of Ed on all the case law that has passed within the past year, and just going through each one of those cases, and why potentially the commissioner, decided the way she decided. So that was all very interesting and well-run as usual. I also attended the information exchange meeting last week on the Cornell Cooperative, which talked about a ton of different and very cool agricultural science opportunities that a few schools in the area are using. And again, just a ton of information on different ways that we can bring that into the district in our classrooms and our curriculum today. Anyone else? Any standing committee updates?
Carol and I will be attending the state conference this coming weekend into early next week in New York. So I'm very excited to have that experience with a colleague and to take advantage of all of the great learning opportunities. The abstracts and the course offering list is extensive, and I'm having a hard time deciding what sessions to attend for a couple of them because there are many that have piqued my interest. So stay tuned.
All right. Upcoming events, as we've talked about several times tonight, our capital project vote is on October 24th from noon until 8 in the Aquatic Center lobby. I know that's a different area, so reminder again, there are signs already all over campus, so please come out and vote. And then our next regular board meeting is November 14th at 7:15 in this room. And if there is nothing else, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Brian.
Unless you want to be here. Second?
Elizabeth?
Any opposed? Doubting it? Any abstentions? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, folks. I will say it because he's not here. We've had a meeting.
Thank